Well, hello. Welcome to the Gentle Rebel podcast, where I explore how to live a more meaningful life as a sensitive, creative type person without getting overwhelmed by all the noise and hostility and chaos in our modern world. My name is Andy Mort. I'm a songwriter, a performer, and I love to help and support my fellow introverted and sensitively intuitive gentle rebels unleash their creativity and find the courage and perspective required to make their own quiet stand for what truly matters in life to them. Welcome to episode number 283, where today I want to talk about flow, creative flow, flow state, that sort of stuff. We all know what flow is. I think we've all kind of been there probably at some point in our lives. You know, when you're doing something, you're completely focused on the task at hand. You lose track of time. You forget about your sense of self and don't worry about others or the world around you. There's this kind of complete sense of immersion in the moment where you feel at one with whatever you're doing. Like time just goes really fast, but also goes really slow. You're just unaware of the passing of it, and you're kind of fully present in the moment with full access to the creativity and the productivity required to do whatever that you're doing. It's talked about a lot online. It's been, spoken about, written about a lot. It's made famous as a concept by the Czech positive psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And I love the idea of flow for many reasons. Firstly, because it speaks to our experience. You know, I bet you can think of a time when you've been in it. For many of us, it might be rare. For others, it might be something that we get into every day, maybe even multiple times a day over a whole range of different activities, not just one type of activity. It's not something that is exclusive to a select few lucky people who are able to kind of focus and concentrate. We can all enter it. We all have entered it, I'm sure. And I also love it because it's subversive. It goes against the grain of so many of the things that we read and learn about around productivity. And it's the antithesis of the kind of busy bubble and multitasking, which is so often held up as this holy grail of things to aspire, like do as many things as you possibly can, like multitaskers are heroes and all this sort of stuff. And yet flow has proved time and time again to be a state of deep productivity, which takes us further into the places that we want to go, further into those tasks, and it enables us to actually be more productive, to get more done, if we kind of get into the habit of entering into it. You know, it's not about knocking loads of stuff off the to-do list. Not to say that there isn't a satisfying place for that. You know, there is a good feeling that comes when you've got a to-do list. You get loads of stuff done, but rather flow rejects this tug within that says, oh, come on, hurry up and get this done. You've got 1,000,001 other things to do after this. So it's that kind of distraction that kind of takes us away from the possibility of flow, because by nature you can't rush flow. You've got to actually change your rhythm. You've got to be at one with the present. You've got to move at a pace that allows for flow to take you. And then when it does, you can actually achieve an unfathomable amount that you might otherwise not. I've written about this before, about one of the biggest benefits of flow, as Csikszentmihalyi describes, which is underpinned by the difference between pleasure and enjoyment. So pleasure is a kind of contented feeling that we get when fulfilling what it says expectations set by a biological program or by social conditioning. When these conditions have been or these expectations have been met, it's a contented feeling that you get. It's linked to kind of appetite and patterns of behaviour that can be actually the root of addiction as well. And Csikszentmihalyi defines the ways that we seek pleasure as homeostatic experiences. Things such as overeating, alcohol consumption, drugs, wealth gain, material possessions, watching TV, having loads of sex, etc. The homeostatic experience occurs when we seek to restore some kind of equilibrium. When we're overstimulated, when our minds are overstimulated, or perhaps they're exhausted by some element of life. And it's what you might kind of describe as escaping reality. So pleasure is that kind of escape of that. Enjoyment, on the other hand, is about engaging in experiences and activities that make life rewarding at a deeper level. You know, the need that almost everybody has to achieve something more than those extrinsic momentary pleasures. And so by nature, enjoyment carries a sense of movement and of growth, and is about progressing with purpose. It's about accomplishing something, long-term momentum towards things you might describe as goals, which is, this kind of links in with the kind of definitions of happiness that many people have settled on. You know, this kind of meaningful movement towards things that matter. These are activities that require full absorption, full development of skill and feedback and use of your signature strengths. They lead to time standing still and increased satisfaction and self-esteem. In other words, flow. Csikszentmihalyi equates flow with enjoyment and the joy that comes from flow with what can be described as happiness. And this kind of flies in the face of a lot of those things that we equate with the pursuit of happiness, which are those homeostatic experiences that leave us feeling empty and desiring more. The pursuit of more money, of more reputation, recognition, the more stuff, more of these experiences that actually, you know, the more that you get, the more that you need in order to satisfy that appetite, that kind of desire. Pleasure is found in knocking a load of tasks off a long to-do list. Joy is found in the space that you are afforded thanks to ridding yourself of the distractions of the to-do list. We can get into something deep and meaningful and make progress towards things that actually matter. That task list is it's the everyday urgent stuff. It's knocking those things that, you know, the chores of life, the things that you've got to get done. And there's something rewarding about knocking that stuff off, but that's not where the true enjoyment of life is found. And so the problem is we often get caught in this task bit, in that original bit. We want the hit of pleasure that comes from getting things done. And so our list gets kind of longer. We become kind of indiscriminate about what we allow on there. And we never allow ourselves to get to the place of real joy and therefore contentedness and happiness and flow state, where we're immersed in a task that removes us from self-awareness, from that sense of time passing, and into that trance-like state of present being and full immersive productivity and creativity. I entered flow as I was preparing for this episode. I didn't need to go to work until a little bit later than normal, so I had 45 minutes more than usual before the kind of work day started. So rather than kind of faffing about and flitting between things, killing time before I needed to go, I thought I'll just make a few notes about this week's podcast. I jot down some ideas, what I want to talk about. And as I started writing some stuff down, the notes began pouring out onto the page. And before I knew it, it was 30 minutes later, I'd almost got the entire episode mapped out. As well as ideas for the extended play episode as well that I wanted to explore. And it's really funny. Sometimes flow is a state that you kind of consciously ready yourself for and then enter in a kind of deliberate fashion. But other times it just happens. You know, I don't know if this ever happened to you when you think, I'll just do something quickly. I did it recently after a shower. I think I'd had one of those shower epiphanies where suddenly an idea pops into your head. You're like rinsing your hair through and you think, oh, that's interesting. I need to make a note of that. So got out of the shower, sat on the edge of my bed, grabbed my computer and wrote down the thing that I'd thought of, or did the little task that I thought of. And then an hour and a half later, I was still there, now bone dry, but still just in my towel with my computer on my lap, with a sore back because I was kind of hunched over my laptop. And what I had was a script for a video that I hadn't previously had, and it wasn't the idea that had come when I was in the shower. It was, something that it was like the byproduct idea that had come to me when I was doing the thing that I'd thought of in the shower. I can't even remember what it was that I'd thought of in the shower. But as a result of doing that, I'd entered into this flow of creating this script for a video idea that I want to explore and then share. And so I'd completely lost track of myself and of time, and had made a huge stride forward with fleshing out some stuff that I'd been it had been sort of sat in the back of my mind for a little while, like as a general idea, but I hadn't found that kind of breakthrough thing to turn it into something any more than just an idea. And there it was. It sort of just came out in that moment, in that hour and a half. I absolutely love it when that kind of thing happens. Sometimes one thing leads to another. Sometimes a little boundary helps, like 45 minutes before work. I'm more likely to enter flow if I have that kind of restriction on my time. That limit that's like, oh, I've just got 45 minutes. I'll just make a note of this. I'll just do that quickly. And I'm usually more productive in that sort of time than I am if I have like a whole day stretching out before me. There's something about unlimited time that makes it a bit harder to focus, a bit harder to say, right, I'm going to knuckle down. I've got 45 minutes. I'm just going to get this done. And it requires a lot more kind of intentionality at the front end. I find if I've got like a Saturday or whatever, where it's like, oh, I've got a whole day to get creative. It takes a lot more to focus me, to get me into flow, if that's the case, than if I, just have a very limited amount of time at the beginning or the end of the day or whatever it is. So yeah, it's interesting. Something worth bearing in mind. Flow isn't necessarily really extensive in terms of time. You don't need to think, oh, in order to get into flow, I need to be doing this I need like 2 or 3 hours in front of me to give it the best. I can enter flow for 15 minutes. If I'm journaling, for example, I will set 15 minutes on the timer and just start writing. And before I know it, the 15 minutes is over, and it feels like 2 seconds, but I've got hundreds of words in front of me. I've just been writing. There are no rules to flow. It's like trying to think about thoughts. The more you try, the more it slips away. But by letting go and allowing the mechanisms that can kind of enable flow to just sort of do their things, you can get into flow over and over. If you don't overthink it, but you sort of get the habits that trigger flow in place. So we'll think about these kind of mechanisms shortly, and explore ways that we can build certain habits, certain triggers, certain cues that can help us get into flow more as individuals. While flow can happen in anything, from driving a car, going for a walk, cleaning your teeth, there are some areas that we can focus on to learn more about the kind of anatomy of flow, build habits that are conducive to making it happen. So you can sort of learn from these areas and then apply them to other things in life. Creativity is the obvious place to start. It's what springs to mind for me when I think about flow. Getting immersed in writing or in recording a song, where a day, even a week, can zoom by in a flash. I won't have taken time to kind of eat anything, not because of like self-neglect, but because like my body and mind are so stuck in the moment. They're so focused on the kind of creative process and the task at hand that they're just like that. They don't call them out as needs to be met during that state, during that time. Hobbies are the things that we do because we enjoy them. Maybe you can get lost in a book and you just keep on reading, keep on turning those pages and lose hours at a time. Perhaps on the golf course, time just sort of fades into insignificance. Or when you're, brewing beer or baking cakes, whatever it is that you do as a pastime, flow has probably been a part of it at one time or another. That's why you do it. We call them pastimes, which is kind of a little misleading. Suggests we need to do something to pass the time, like we need to kill time or do something while we wait for the next important thing to happen. But hobbies, when we enter flow, are so much more than pastimes. they can make time become more incidental and of little importance. They can turn time inside out. Though I guess they can result in time passing by without us realizing. I don't know. Interesting. Computer games, they are pretty much designed for flow state on the whole. I used to lose myself in strategy games like SimCity and Football Manager and Roller Coaster Tycoon, those sorts of games I used to absolutely love. And it's unbelievable how time just kind of disappears when you're in flow state playing computer games. There's obviously the addictive element with games that are kind of built in intentionally to kind of make you keep playing, to keep you there. But the flow state is a key part of that. You know, it's what makes good games deeply enjoyable. It's what makes you sort of able to play a game and lose a day because you're so engrossed in it. You sort of ignore all those outside distractions. Work is often an environment of flow. You know, if you've got a good work environment where you can limit distractions and get stuck into interesting and compelling tasks, when we're able to get into flow state in the workplace, we get much more enjoyment from it, that intrinsic sense of satisfaction from your job. Think of those days when you've been able to really push something forward by having a clear run at it. And you've thought, well, that day's gone really, really fast. It's often because you've been able to enter into a flow state. Sport or exercise, again, great platforms for flow. You hear competitors at all levels of sport talk about being, in the zone, of seeing only what matters in front of them, of being able to kind of block out all the noise from around them, all the distractions that might throw them off their concentration, off their focus. And this is at the heart of flow, the tunnel vision of focus on what's important. I've had it when I'm running many times. Usually when I've gone out for a run without feeling like it, I'm like, I really, really don't want to go, but I'm going to. For some reason, those times lend themselves to flow even more. And I've just found myself kind of running and then being deeply aware of my breath. So like breathing deeply, steadily, focused not on the pain, but on the rhythm and on the pacing. And then, I can get into flow when running on the road a lot more than on the treadmill, become much more aware of the pain when I'm on a treadmill, because I think you're distracted by the kind of statistics coming up on the screen in front of you and all that sort of stuff. Although I have entered flow on a treadmill if I've got good music in my ears. It's on the road. It's just that kind of pacing, the one foot in front of the other, the rhythm, the pace. And in those moments, I think, I could do this forever. I could just keep going without getting tired. Eventually, I would get tired and stop. But those moments are really, really just great. Exams. So this one, I thought when I was making those notes the other morning, I thought flow doesn't just happen in the places that we enjoy or doing the things that we want to do and like doing. Enjoyment comes from getting into flow anywhere. So it's this kind of cycle of stuff. I remember being in flow state during exams when I was at school, and then later at university. That initial panic as you turn the paper over and you're like, oh, what are the questions going to be? They turn into action. As there's nowhere to run. All you've got is a clock ticking down. So it's just you and that exam paper. And so you make a plan. You're like, okay, how am I going to tackle these questions? And then you build from the plan. You start writing. A 3-hour exam sounds like and looks like hell at the front end. I had a number of 3-hour exams, but I was always surprised because the time was always kind of enveloped by flow. You might be cursing me and calling me a lucky sod right now because our experiences of exams are quite different. But, I didn't get into flow every time I was in an exam. There were times where it was like, I want the ground to swallow me up because I have no idea what to write here. But I just think it's interesting to point out that flow is not a preserve for those things that we simply want to do. It's those things that we are, faced with. You've got that challenge. I hated exams, but flow still often came. Flow isn't a result of having fun, being happy, or feeling good, but it can transport us, through those feelings and out the other side. It can transport us, I don't know, anywhere around those feelings. But yeah, I used to get that with exams as well. Right, so we're going to think about some simple ways to get into flow state in just a second. Okay, so to finish, let's just look at some of the ways that we can, or some of the mechanisms we can use to achieve flow state in our lives. Starting point is clarity. What are you doing? It's often the first, blockage to flow. We don't actually know what we are doing. We don't know what we need to do. So it's a case of like identifying what's important, identify the goal, whatever it might be. And then start small. If the task feels too overwhelming, then it probably is. So break it down. My goal to write in my journal every day a few years ago when I started doing the daily journaling, that's too big as a concept, And even as I started to sit to write each morning, I was like, well, what am I supposed to write? I don't know where to begin with all this. So I went very, very micro and said, okay, well, just write one sentence about anything you like, and then you can stop, because at least you can tick that off. You've journaled today, even if it is just a sentence. And then that sentence would turn into a paragraph. And then it was very rare. I don't think I ever actually stopped at one paragraph. But that sentence was the trigger for flow. It was saying, okay, you don't need to know, what this is going to look like, but just start with this. Just write a sentence. And then that kicked into action this state of flow where it's like, okay, I'm off. Shut off distractions. Turn off notifications on your phone, on your computer. Shut down the email, things pinging up on your screen that just take you away, take you out of that sense of flow. If you've got those little tasks, that to-do list that we talked about earlier, knock them off before you do anything else, if you can do them quickly, and then place boundaries around them. Say, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, and then I'm going to get into this bigger task. And so you shouldn't have that distraction then of this list of things that, I shouldn't be doing this, I should be doing that. Get comfortable. Be in an environment where you're not even thinking about the environment that you're in. Think of it like being, a fish in water. Your environment should not distract, but it should assist. It should enable you to breathe and to live and to do what needs to be done. But it shouldn't be a place that's, full of really nice, shiny things that are going to distract you. And it shouldn't be full of, it needs to be of a decent standard so that you're not being distracted by like dirt and mess and clutter and all that sort of stuff. That really helps with getting into flow. Still your mind. Even when I'm doing what I should be doing, my mind wanders to other things. Think, I am here now. This is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm meant to be doing. And pick the right time to do whatever the task is. Energy fluctuates throughout the day. It's naturally better at different points and for different individuals. I can't really get into flow state just after lunch, but if I have a little espresso and then a nap, I can enter flow very quickly after that. I can also get there in the early parts of the morning and sometimes in the evening as well. But if I've achieved it, a couple of times in a day, then I'm probably not going to be that effective if I keep trying to force myself into it throughout a day. So it's kind of setting up those expectations and being gentle and caring towards yourself And yeah, not forcing it, not saying, right, you've come out of that bit of flow, and then now you've got to do a bit more. Which, yeah, use a timer. Kind of this lends itself to the next point. I think this is potentially controversial because it could kind of jolt you out of flow. But I've found the Pomodoro technique has been a massive contributor to flow for me. It alleviates the fear of losing time. If you've not actually got much time, but it's enough to ring fence this period of time that you can say, right, I'm going to just start. I'll soon have a break. The idea is that you focus for like 25-minute chunks at a time. Then you do 25 minutes, have a short break, 25 minutes, short break, 25 minutes, and then a longer break. And it just, that concentration of 25 minutes at a time allows you to get into flow. It allows you to get into really productive time. And I've found it invaluable, especially when I'm writing. It's really, really helpful. I was recently actually sent an amazing little device by a company called Luxafor. It's a USB LED timer thing, which changes color at pre-programmed times, so that you can use it as like a Pomodoro timer, but it's like a visual one, or as a way to also inform people around you that you're busy. So you can use it in like an open office environment, a bit like a traffic light system. So you can make it red if you're like, please do not distract me, I'm deep in flow, or you can make it kind of green if it's like, yeah, I'm just like tickling around the internet, please do come and distract me, or any other color if it's like, you can come and like get my attention if it's really, really vital, but otherwise please just leave me alone. They also do a Bluetooth version, which is perfect if you kind of need to work with the door shut, or something like that. You want to communicate which state you're in, or whether you're open for distractions. So it communicates both to you through the light and also to those around you, whether or not it's okay to interrupt you. The USB one, the Bluetooth one, is perfect for say like recording a podcast. So I can put it anywhere in the house and people will know, okay, Andy's recording a podcast, like leave him alone. So yeah, it's all customizable timings and colors and all that sort of stuff. A really, really nice bit of kit, very simple but cool. I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can check it out for yourself, if that sounds like the sort of thing that you'd find useful, whether at home or in an open office environment. And then finally, enjoy the post-flow state. I don't know about you, but I am often quick to jump from one thing to the next, as I've just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. But after, completing a time of flow, I'm sometimes like really, really tempted to move on to the next thing. And the momentum of flow can kind of contribute to that as well. You're like, oh man, I'm getting loads done here. That was really productive. And so this deeply rewarding moment after flow, where you're like relaxed and satisfied, like that was really good. Not to use that as a, right, come on then, you've got to use this momentum to do something else. To actually just reflect on what you've just experienced. You've moved the needle on a project. You've made some really good, interesting progress, whatever it might be. Just look at what you've done. Enjoy that moment. Appreciate that feeling before you move on to the next thing. So that's flow, something available to all of us, a state we can all achieve. I would love to hear from you on this topic. Can you think of a time when you've experienced flow state? What were you doing? And what are the biggest barriers to flow for you? I'd love to know what this looks like for you. Come and leave a comment on the show notes. You'll find it at andymort.com/flow. There'll be links to the things I've talked about in this episode as well. That Luxafor traffic light system, brilliant. Go and check that out. So yeah, we're nearing the end of this show, but there is a little bit more. Here is a short clip from this week's extended play episode. Quite intense kind of learning. There's a lot of like teaching from the front, and then you have to break off and do practical tasks in like pairs and small groups and stuff, which is, delightful for all the introverts in the room. And there was this last task that came at the end of the day. I literally just kind of shut down. And we were supposed to be sort of coaching one another. I was with someone I hadn't worked with before, and we were just supposed to be coaching each other through this certain section of the model that we use. And I had to say to the guy that I was supposed to be working with, I was like, dude, I'm done. I can't think of any words. It's not the most confidence boosting way to end the day. You go away thinking, oh man, that was a failure. So that was from the extended play version of the Gentle Rebel podcast, the private podcast that's available for Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show, you want to hear me delve deeper into the topics each week, then go to andymort.com/Patreon. Or just search for the Gentle Rebel private podcast on the Patreon site itself. Patreon. My life is going through a rather large and a highly unexpected transition at the moment. And as I'm kind of working through this period of uninvited change, rather than keeping the kind of challenges and joys and fears and anxieties and all that sort of stuff hidden, which is my normal kind of introvert and sensitive response, I want to be candid and open about some of those things, because I know from experience that it can be a huge support to others dealing with their own messy and confusing situations as well, and just working life out in general. So if I can help people feel a little less alone, then I'm successfully adding the kind of value that I want to people's lives. So through Patreon, you'll get your own private podcast feed, so you can listen to those extended play episodes wherever you listen to this one as well. And I kind of delve into some stuff that I feel safer to delve into there than on this public show. I think I've reached my limit now. I really have to go. Please don't try to follow me, 'cause I need to be alone. I'll be back when I'm back. I'll be here when I'm here. It's a little thing I do. I'm not being antisocial. It is nothing to do with you. I still love you. Well, thank you so much for listening today. I hope this has been helpful in some way. If it has, then please do consider supporting the show by leaving a review and rating wherever you listen to podcasts, and do share it on social media as well. Both of those are perfect ways to get this episode and previous ones into more of the ears of introverts and sensitive, creative types searching for help, support, and to connect with other people who resonate with these ideas and topics that we're exploring. So, if we can make one more Gentle Rebel aware of their own unique value and voice and feel less alone, then ultimately the whole world is going to be better off. So please do share it wherever you can. Thank you to those who already have. It really does mean the world. Okay, I'm going to be back next time with another episode of the podcast. If you subscribe to the Extended Play private podcast, then I will see you there. Until the next time we speak, remember, you are an artist. The world needs your art. Now go and make somebody's day. Goodbye.
In disguise, we can